different options how you can actually do this, how you can set up your infrastructure on Azure, what different possibilities are there. Then we'll take a look at the SAP Cloud Appliance Library to show you an easy way of how to deploy an SAP system from scratch. And then we'll look at the roadmap of some of the topics that we are working currently together on how to improve the overall installation experience. Just a disclaimer, what we're showing here is not mandatory for any of the exercises that we do in the coming units and weeks. This is really just to show you what you can do and how easy it is to start and install an SAP system on Microsoft Azure. So to start with, let's quickly take a look at the different options that we see on a very, very high level. So obviously, Microsoft Azure comes with lots of infrastructure components. So you can choose from a lot of different virtual machines. You can use network setups, storage options, some of these things that we discussed in a previous unit. So one way to get started is to just really start from scratch, take some virtual machines, take some storage, and then have, very much like what you have basically on your on-premise data centers, a virtual machine where you log into, where you then start the installation process of your SAP system. Now, this gives you full flexibility and it's a nice way to get started. But actually, what we see with a lot of customers then is if you want to operationalize this whole process, if you want to integrate this into a pipeline, if you want to look at infrastructure as code, then you need some templates that help you get started. So on Azure, we have so-called Azure Resource Manager templates. These are APIs that help you to install an infrastructure. Similarly, we do support Terraform, which obviously helps you to have cross-platform, cross-cloud installation processes. So with these tools, you can get started and install a complete infrastructure. Then we can use Ansible scripts to do one more step and really install the full SAP system. We actually have a lot of partners and customers that work with us to create these templates, that leverage samples that we have on GitHub to get started, that adapt this to their own requirements, and then install SAP systems in a repeatable fashion. One last thing that I really want to highlight is the SAP Cloud Appliance Library. I'm actually a huge fan of the SAP Cloud Appliance Library because within a few clicks, it gives me the opportunity to deploy a fully configured S/4HANA system. And actually, we'll take a look at that in a second. There's a huge library of solutions available. And really, within a few clicks, you can get a fully configured, fully operational S/4HANA system. The goal right now is really to have a sandbox or a demo environment. But the beauty is you don't need to invest a lot of time. If you just want to check out the latest features in S/4HANA, then this is just a few clicks away. You test it, and once you're done, you just remove everything, and you don't need to pay anything for the infrastructure anymore. So let's quickly dive into the first one. So really setting up the infrastructure from scratch. So obviously, as I said before, you have the full flexibility, but still there are certain guidelines and recommendations that we provide. So on the Azure.com pages, we have reference architectures that outline how we see what are our best practices, both from Microsoft running SAP, from SAP running SAP on Azure, but also a lot of feedback that we got from customers and partners to really provide a resilient architecture on SAP, on Azure. Now, obviously, we have a huge range of virtual machines, but the first thing that we need to make sure is that we only take the ones that are actually certified for SAP. There's the hardware directory where you can take a look at the available virtual machines. There's also an SAP note that outlines all the required steps and dependencies to get the infrastructure up and running. But then you can either use the Azure portal, you can use command line interfaces, you can use APIs to create your infrastructure and then really deploy your SAP system like you would do it on premise. So this is maybe a good thing to get started if you want to experience Azure. But then what we see in a lot of cases is that from this purely manual thing, getting a virtual machine, attaching storage and so on. And we see a lot of customers really embracing our templates, our automation templates. So on GitHub, we have tons of templates that help you get started with either setting up the infrastructure from scratch, and then so you're still fully under control on what you want to do next, or even go one step further and say, well, we'll deploy everything for you. Obviously, the SAP software is something that you need to provide. You would need to log on to SAP. You would need to provide your S user to download the software. But then we can fully automate the installation process to get you started and really have an S/4HANA system from scratch running on Azure. So especially since all these scripts are available on GitHub, we see a lot of partners and customers forking these repositories, enhancing them, extending them with their own requirements. And this is really something that can help you to automate the whole process and really quickly get started running an SAP system. Now, the last thing that I mentioned before was the SAP Cloud Appliance Library. And instead of me just looking at this and talking about this in a slide, let's actually quickly take a look at how the Cloud Appliance Library looks like. So let me switch over to the browser window. And what I want to actually start with is I want to start with the entry point azure.com/SAP. So here on the azure.com/SAP site, we have a lot of information around how to run your SAP system on Azure. There are lots of use cases, scenarios, there are customers, testimonials, and so on. You see Satya and Christian Klein talking about the extended partnership. But then down here, we have an overview of different high-level solutions that you can run on Azure. Obviously, there are more, but this is a good entry point here. Now, if we are then on this SAP Solutions on Azure, then here we have additional information like how we would recommend to set up, for example, an SAP HANA system, what kind of virtual machines we have available. So this is a good starting point. We also provide you with some pricing estimates. Basically, if you are looking for, I don't know, a 6 terabyte instance in different regions here, how much would it cost? But then if you go a little further down here, then we have the possibility to really switch over to the Cloud Appliance Library. And here now you can see a list of solutions that are available on the Cloud Appliance Library. So you can see, obviously, there's the latest S/4HANA 2020 FPS 01 fully activated, FPS 02. We have the ABAP Development Developer Edition, which I think is extremely popular. And you can see this is a long list of solutions. Now, the fantastic thing here is I can just click on Create Instance. I would need to provide an Azure subscription, obviously. So either you have done this already up front, that you have already connected your Cloud Appliance Library, for example, with an Azure subscription here, and then you can just provide in some information. And if you click on Create, then this solution would be deployed in your Azure subscription. Once that is done, you can just access the solution from the Cloud Appliance Library. If there are Fiori screens available, you can just access them here via browser. There's typically not only the SAP system installed, but there's also, for example, here a Windows Remote Desktop, basically like a jump server where you have typically tools like the SAP GUI installed, where there is browser configuration. Sometimes there are additional ABAP and Eclipse design time available and so on. So this is really a beautiful place to get started, and you can either directly connect then here via this remote desktop and then access your SAP system, or what you can again also do is just access the Fiori applications. There's a getting started guide that outlines what URLs are available, what users are available, what are the typical scenarios for this specific SAP solution. So it's a really easy and quick way to get started. So typically when I talk to customers and the business is asking, well, what about the new functionalities? What about the new features in the latest S/4HANA release? Then for me as an admin guy, it's extremely simple. I just go to the Cloud Appliance Library, I select the latest version, I create this instance, and then I can hand this over to the business so they can easily test these solutions. So this is a quick look at the Cloud Appliance Library and how you can actually use it to deploy a system. Again, this is not required for our course for the next units here, but I think it is really a fantastic solution that allows you to quickly test and demo the latest SAP solutions. Now, I was highlighting a lot this test and demo aspect of the Cloud Appliance Library. Well, actually, we're working very closely with SAP on enhancing this even further. So first of all, we're spending a lot of time in simplifying the whole migration. That if you have an SAP system, ECC running on premise, that we can help you further to migrate, do an SAP conversion, migrate your SAP system to an S/4HANA on Azure. Now, if you want to start fresh with a greenfield approach, then obviously you need to install an S/4HANA system that is not only ready for a demo, like what we currently saw in the Cloud Appliance Library, but really an S/4HANA system that is production ready, that is high available, that has some disaster recovery functionalities built in. And that's another area where we're working with SAP right now to enhance the Cloud Appliance Library so that you can also deploy productive ready SAP solutions to Azure. So this is really something that I'm also very excited about, because I think this will dramatically help you get started with SAP. You don't need to work with different credentials and tools on the SAP side and then do the same thing on the Microsoft side, but you will have a experience similar like what we saw right now in the Cloud Appliance Library, where you can just click a button and then instead of just a demo system, you would really have a production ready S/4HANA system running on Azure. So with this, I'm actually already done with this unit. There are additional links, as always here, that can get you started. Check out the Cloud Appliance Library. Make sure that you give it a try. Again, it's not required for this course, but I think it's a really beautiful solution to help you get started with the latest SAP technologies. Thank you very much for